The sky was painted in deep shades of gray as thick raindrops pelted the streets. 8-year-old Emily clutched her umbrella tightly, her small hands trembling from the cold. The wind howled through the empty sidewalk, carrying the scent of wet earth and distant thunder. She quickened her steps, eager to reach home before the storm worsened. But just as she passed the old park near her neighborhood, she heard it, a faint, desperate whimper. Emily stopped. The sound was almost swallowed by the roaring wind, but there it was again, a weak, pitiful cry. She turned toward the park, her heart pounding. The swings creaked as the wind pushed them back and forth, and puddles shimmered under the dim glow of the street lamp. Then she saw it. Under a wooden bench, curled into a trembling ball, was a small dog. Its fur was soaked and matted with mud, and its thin body shivered uncontrollably. One of its front paws was tucked awkwardly beneath its body, as if injured. But what struck Emily the most were its eyes, wide, filled with fear yet pleading for help. Her chest tightened. "Hey there," she whispered, slowly crouching down. "It's okay. I won't hurt you." The dog flinched at her voice, pressing itself further against the bench. It didn't trust her. Not yet. Emily carefully set her umbrella aside, letting the rain drench her hair and clothes. She reached into her school bag and pulled out the sandwich her mom had packed for her lunch. Peeling off a piece of bread, she placed it on the ground a few inches away. "Come on," she coaxed softly. "You must be so hungry." The dog hesitated, sniffing the air. After what felt like forever, it stretched its neck forward, cautiously licking the bread before snatching it up. Emily's heart lifted. Slowly, she inched closer, her hands open and non-threatening. "You're okay now," she murmured. The dog let out a shaky breath, as if surrendering. With one last glance at her, it crawled forward just enough for her to touch its damp fur. Emily ran her fingers gently along its back, feeling the sharp ridges of its ribs beneath her palm. It was too thin, too weak. She couldn't leave it here. Taking off her jacket, she wrapped it carefully around the trembling creature and lifted it into her arms. It stiffened at first, but then rested its head against her chest, exhausted. As she hurried home, she had no idea that this moment would change her life forever. Emily burst through the front door, her rain-soaked shoes squeaking against the wooden floor. The small bundle in her arms shivered violently, its frail body barely able to hold in its own warmth. Her mother, standing at the kitchen counter, turned in surprise. "Emily, what happened? You're drenched." Emily barely heard her. "Mom, please, we have to help him." She stepped forward, revealing the muddy, frightened dog wrapped in her jacket. Its ears flattened at the sight of a new person, but it was too weak to resist. Her mother's expression softened, but concern flickered in her eyes. "Oh, sweetheart," she sighed, kneeling down for a closer look. "Where did you find him?" "He was in the park, alone and hurt." Emily tightened her grip protectively. "We can't just leave him." Her father, who had just stepped into the room, frowned. "Emily, we don't know where that dog has been. He could be sick or belong to someone." Emily's heart clenched, but she held her ground. "I don't think he has anyone. He's so skinny, Dad. He needs us." For a long moment, her parents exchanged looks. Then her mother let out a soft sigh. "All right, just for tonight, but we'll take him to the vet first thing in the morning." Relief washed over Emily as she nodded eagerly. "Thank you, thank you." She gently placed the dog onto a towel near the fireplace. He curled into himself, too weak to move, but his eyes followed Emily's every movement. She rushed to get a bowl of water and a plate of leftover chicken, setting it in front of him. At first, he only sniffed, uncertain. But the moment he tasted the food, it was as if something inside him woke up. He devoured every bite, licking the plate clean. Emily giggled. "You were starving, weren't you?" The dog let out a small, content sigh. He looked at her again. This time, something in his expression had changed. He wasn't just afraid anymore. He was grateful. That night, despite her parents' insistence that the dog should stay in the living room, Emily crept downstairs and curled up beside him on the floor. He hesitated before pressing his small body against her warmth. The next morning, the vet confirmed what Emily had feared. The dog was severely underweight, had an untreated sprained paw and had likely been fending for himself for months, but with care he would recover. What should we call him? The vet asked as he gently bandaged the dog's paw. Emily smiled, stroking the soft fur behind his ears. Max, she whispered. And from that moment, Max was no longer just a stray. He was family. Months passed, and Max transformed from a frail, frightened stray into a strong, playful companion. His once dull, matted fur now shined with a healthy glow. His once hesitant steps became confident bounds as he chased after Emily in the backyard. Every morning, he sat by the door, waiting for her to come downstairs. Every afternoon, he was at the gate, wagging his tail as she returned from school. He wasn't just a pet, he was her shadow, her best friend. But then, one evening, everything changed. Emily sat at the dinner table, absently twirling her fork in her mashed potatoes when she heard her father clear his throat. He exchanged a glance with her mother before speaking. "Emily, we need to talk about something important." She looked up, immediately sensing the seriousness in his tone. "What is it?" Her mother reached for her hand. "Your dad got a new job in the city, sweetheart. We have to move." Emily's heart skipped a beat. Move? But what about Max? A heavy silence filled the room. Then her father exhaled. "The new apartment doesn't allow pets, Emily." The words hit like a punch to the stomach. She sat frozen, her mind refusing to accept what she had just heard. "But he's family," she whispered. Her mother's eyes filled with sadness. "I know, sweet, and we would keep him if we could. But we found a good solution. Uncle Daniel has a big yard, and he's agreed to take Max in. He'll be safe, and we can visit." Emily's chair scraped against the floor as she shot to her feet. "No, he belongs with me. He wouldn't leave me. I can't leave him." Tears blurred her vision as she turned toward Max, who lay curled up beside the couch, watching her with those deep brown eyes. Did he understand? Did he know what was happening? That night, she barely slept. Max nestled beside her bed, unaware that their days together were numbered. The dreaded day arrived too soon. Uncle Daniel stood by his car, smiling warmly, but Emily couldn't return it. Every part of her wanted to scream, to beg, to run away with Max. Instead, she knelt down, wrapping her arms around him as he licked her cheek, wagging his tail as if it were just another ordinary day. "I love you," she whispered into his fur. "Don't forget me." Max whimpered softly, pressing his nose against her palm. Then, as Uncle Daniel gently guided him into the backseat, Emily felt her heart break. As the car disappeared down the road, Max's eyes never left hers, and in that moment, she made a silent promise. Somehow, someday, they would find their way back to each other. The city was different from what Emily was used to. Gone were the wide open spaces, the quiet streets, and the warmth of familiar faces. The apartment felt small, and even though her parents tried to make it feel like home, something was missing. Every morning, she still reached for the leash by the door, only to remember that Max wasn't there waiting for her. Days turned into weeks, and the ache in her heart never faded. She missed the sound of his paws clicking against the floor, the way he'd nuzzle into her lap when she was sad. She thought about visiting him at Uncle Daniel's, but each time her parents brought it up, she couldn't bear the idea of seeing him, only to leave again. One afternoon, after finishing her homework, she decided to take a walk to the nearby park. It was smaller than the one back home, with fewer trees and more people, but it was the only place she could be alone with her thoughts. She kicked at a few pebbles, tracing a path along the paved walkway, lost in memories of Max. That was when she noticed him. A man in a dark jacket stood near the edge of the playground, watching the children play. At first, she thought nothing of it, just another adult waiting for someone. But then he moved, slowly, deliberately. His gaze didn't follow the other kids. It followed her. Emily's stomach tightened. Maybe she was imagining things. Maybe he was just a parent. But then, as she stepped onto a quieter path lined with bushes, she heard footsteps behind her. Her heart pounded. She quickened her pace, pretending not to notice, but the footsteps matched her speed. She swallowed hard, glancing over her shoulder. The man had moved closer, too close. Hey there, he called out, his voice oddly friendly. Are you lost? Emily's breath caught in her throat. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but her feet wouldn't move. The man took another step forward. I can help you find your way home, he said, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. Emily's pulse pounded in her ears. She knew she needed to do something, scream, run, anything, but fear had her frozen in place. Then, just as the man took another step toward her, something broke through the tension. A deep, furious bark. Emily's eyes widened as a blur of fur came charging toward them, fast and fierce. Emily barely had time to process what was happening before Max lunged forward, his growl low and menacing. His sharp barks cut through the air like a warning bell, sending a jolt of fear through the man who had stepped too close. The stranger flinched, taking an instinctive step back. Whoa, where did you come from? He muttered, raising his hand slightly. But Max wasn't giving him a chance to react. His teeth bared, his stance rigid, he placed himself between Emily and the man, his body coiled like a spring ready to strike. Emily had never seen him like this before, so fierce, so protective. It was as if every instinct in him screamed that she was in danger, and he wasn't going to let anything happen to her. The man hesitated, his friendly mask slipping. He glanced around, realizing that a barking dog would draw attention. His eyes darted toward the main park area where parents and other children were starting to look in their direction. Max barked again, louder this time. The stranger took another step back. Find whatever, he muttered, his voice now sharp and irritated. Without another word, he turned and hurried away, disappearing behind the trees. Emily's entire body was shaking. She hadn't even realized she was gripping her breath until it came out in a sharp exhale. The moment the man was out of sight, Max turned toward her, his tail wagging slightly, his big brown eyes scanning her face as if checking to make sure she was okay. She dropped to her knees, throwing her arms around his neck. Max, she whispered, her voice breaking. How are you here? Max whined softly, nuzzling into her shoulder. His fur was warm, comforting, familiar. It didn't make sense. He was supposed to be miles away, living with Uncle Daniel. Yet here he was, as if he had known she needed him. A voice broke through her daze. Emily? She looked up to see her mother rushing toward her, her face pale with worry. She must have heard the barking. Behind her, other parents were watching from a distance, murmuring to each other about the strange man who had just left. Her mother skidded to a stop, her eyes widening as they landed on Max. Is that? Emily nodded, still gripping his fur as if she was afraid he'd vanish. It's Max. He found me. Her mother's hand flew to her mouth in shock. But how? Emily didn't know the answer. All she knew was that Max had saved her. Again, Emily's mother stood frozen, her eyes flicking between her daughter and the dog that shouldn't have been there. Max wagged his tail, his tongue hanging slightly from his mouth, but his eyes never left Emily, as if making sure she was still safe. How is this possible? Her mother whispered, kneeling beside them. Max was supposed to be at Uncle Daniel's. Emily shook her head, still overwhelmed. I don't know. He saved me. Her mother exhaled sharply and pulled out her phone. I need to call Daniel. He must be worried sick. As she stepped aside to make the call, Emily stayed on the ground, still holding Max close. She could feel his steady heartbeat beneath her hands. He was thinner than she remembered, his paws dirty from travel, but he was here. Somehow, against all odds, he had found her. Her mother's conversation was brief, but when she returned, her face was even more stunned than before. Daniel said Max disappeared 3 days ago. They searched everywhere, but he was just gone. Emily's eyes widened. 3 days ago. She did the math in her head. That's how long it would have taken him to get here. Her mother pressed a hand to her chest. You're telling me Max ran all the way from Daniel's house, through miles of streets, across who knows where, just to find you? Emily looked down at Max. He gazed back at her with those familiar, knowing eyes. She swallowed hard. I think he knew I needed him. Her mother rubbed her arms, as if shaking off the chill of something too incredible to fully believe. "We need to get him home," she finally said. "He must be exhausted." Emily nodded and stood, keeping one hand on Max's back as if afraid to let go. The entire walk home, he stayed right by her side, never once straying. When they reached the apartment building, her mother hesitated. "We're not supposed to have pets here." Max sat at Emily's feet, looking up at her mother with quiet patience. Emily's throat tightened. "Mom," he saved me. "I can't send him away again." Her mother sighed, running a hand through her hair. Let's talk to your father. We'll figure something out." That night, as Emily lay in bed, Max curled up beside her like he always used to. She stroked his fur, her mind still reeling. He had come back. He had found her when she needed him the most. No matter what, she wasn't letting him go again. Emily woke up to the comforting weight of Max curled beside her, his slow, steady breathing filling the quiet morning air. For the first time in months, she felt truly at home. But as the sunlight streamed through her window, reality set in. Her parents still had to decide what to do about Max. She tiptoed into the kitchen, where her mother sat with a cup of coffee, deep in thought. Her father stood by the window, his arms crossed. "Mom, Dad," Emily said, her voice firm. "We can't send him away again." Her father sighed. "Emily, you know the rules. No pets in the building." "But he found me," she pleaded. "He knew I needed him. He came all this way. Doesn't that mean something?" Her mother exchanged a look with her father, her expression softer. "I spoke with Uncle Daniel again this morning," she said. "He was shocked Max traveled so far. He said if we truly can't keep him, he'll take him back." Emily's stomach twisted. That's not an option. She took a deep breath. "Can we at least try talking to the landlord? Maybe there's a way." Her father hesitated, then exhaled. "All right, but don't get your hopes up." Later that afternoon, they met with Mr. Harris, the building's landlord. He was an older man with a stern expression, not one for bending the rules. "I understand your situation," he said, folding his hands on the desk, "but this building has a strict no pets policy." Emily's heart sank, but she refused to give up. "Max isn't just a pet," she said, her voice steady. "He saved me. I was in danger, and he protected me. He found me when I needed him. Doesn't that count for something?" Mr. Harris glanced at Max, who sat obediently by Emily's side, his tail still but his eyes warm. He let out a slow breath. "That's quite the story," he admitted, "and I can see he's well behaved." He tapped his fingers on the desk. "Tell you what, I'll make an exception, but only if he doesn't cause any trouble." Emily's eyes widened. "Really?" Her parents looked just as surprised. Mr. Harris nodded. "Yes, but if I hear complaints, I'll have to rethink it." Emily dropped to her knees, hugging Max. "Did you hear that, buddy? You're staying." Max wagged his tail wildly, licking her face as if he understood every word. As they left the office, her father ruffled her hair. "I have to admit," he said, shaking his head in disbelief, "that dog is something special." Emily smiled. "I know." Max had found his way back to her. And now, he was home for good. The days that followed felt like a dream. Max was finally home, and this time, nothing would take him away again. Emily cherished every moment with him. Long walks in the park, quiet afternoons where he rested his head on her lap, and mornings where she woke up to his wagging tail. But one thing never left her mind: the way he had found her. One evening, as she sat on her bed, running her fingers through Max's soft fur, she whispered, "How did you know?" Max lifted his head, tilting it slightly, as if he understood the question but couldn't give her an answer. She pulled out an old photo from her bedside drawer. It was from the day she first rescued him, when he was nothing but a scared, shivering stray. "I saved you once," she murmured, "and somehow you saved me back." Her father, standing in the doorway, cleared his throat. "You know, scientists talk about how dogs can sense things we can't. Maybe it's instinct, or maybe," he shrugged, "maybe it's just love." Emily smiled, blinking back the emotions welling in her chest. "Maybe it is." As the weeks passed, Max adjusted perfectly to city life. He never barked too much, never caused trouble, and soon, even the neighbors who had frowned at the idea of a dog in the building began to warm up to him. One evening, as Emily and her parents sat outside the apartment building, Max resting beside them, an elderly woman from the third floor approached with a gentle smile. "That's quite a special dog you have there," she said, watching Max with admiration. Emily grinned. "Yeah, he really is." The woman chuckled. "You know they say some dogs come into our lives for a reason. They choose us as much as we choose them." Emily looked down at Max, who gazed up at her with those same knowing eyes. "I think he chose me a long time ago," she whispered. Max wagged his tail, as if agreeing. No matter what, they had kept their unspoken promise to each other. And they always would.